G'day guys, my name's Leighton. It's my honour and privilege to be here today, obviously. I am the owner of Found Coffee, a small coffee shop in Toronto that turned out to grow, which was really, really exciting. And so it's a real honour to be able to be asked to be here today to share my story and hopefully give you some insight in terms of what we've experienced, both the good and the bad, because I'm sure the most value that I can add to this conversation would basically be that the hands-on experience. You know, anyone can get, you can read a book about anything, but ultimately some of the best things that I could offer you would basically be to answer some questions, maybe the why behind the what, maybe things that I've noticed in the industry in Australia that maybe are translating over to North America. Have any of you been to Australia before? No. Wow, this is probably why Found's working out all right, because the goal of Found is to actually give you a little bit of Australia, a bit of home for me away from home. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal story. So I'm 36. I know I look probably a little bit younger. I got really lucky. I was born with spina bifida, so I was actually born dead. I've had 63 hospital admissions. I'm one of very few in the world who can walk with spina bifida. Now, I got bullied in school for 13 years. I basically didn't have many friends. I was the butt of basically every joke you could think of. So I'm used to being resilient in situations. So to give you some context, I started firstly in Toronto back in, I started working in coffee at 15. Now my experience in coffee started with a company called Gloria Jeans. Now you probably haven't heard of Gloria Jeans, most people in North America haven't, but in Australia, about, I would say 20 odd years ago, there was about 150 locations. It was the most successful franchise in Australia that was doing specialty coffee at that time. And it was actually an American concept that someone had bought and brought to Australia. I started working there at 15. I started working at a little local, it's called Ashfield Mall. It was a little coffee shop called Gloria Jeans, and that's where I found community. I was bullied at school. I had no friends. Every day I would work there after school, and then every weekend I would work there. And it's a place where I felt like I belonged. It was a place that I felt connected, like I mattered, like I had friends, like there was more to every day going to school and getting made fun of. Little did I realize I was promoted to the management role of that shop at 16. So I started managing that shop, which was only a very quiet shop. It was in a little mall outside of the main sort of CBD. But I, fell in love with coffee. I fell in love with more than coffee, but what it does, it brings people together. Like it's a conduit of community. Like every city you go to, whether you're visiting a new city, whether you're visiting a new town, whether you're visiting a new region of Toronto, often you're going to a coffee shop. It's where people go to escape. It's where people go to have a different experience or to get out of the house. Over here, I've learned that coffee shops also are places that people work from and study from for prolonged periods of time without spending very much money. But that's something that we will get into a little bit more. Now, I went into real estate, our family business as well, so I had a bit of a break from the coffee industry. Our family business needed some extra love and some help, so I spent some time working on building our rent roll and a few other things there, and then I went back into coffee. I fell in love with the idea of being able to create a new brand, and so I helped start a brand called Comma Coffee. And the idea behind that was, what do you do when you see a comma in a sentence? You take a breath. You breathe in, you take a pause. So that's, we then took that concept. Now I didn't own the concept, so don't think that I have like $1 million where I can be like, yeah, let's start. We started 31 locations over 8 years. So and I was pioneering that. So I had scaled, built brand guidelines, did all of those sort of things, created menus, recipe sheets, and all of that experience from the franchising world gave me the head start to be able to understand how to scale my business. Now, I then was like a bit burnt out because in the industry, it's, if you've worked in hospitality, that it's very people focused, it's very, face forward. There's a lot of stress and strain that we deal with every single day. And that can weigh on you. You can't just escape behind a computer screen. In a cafe, you're literally the person. If someone else out there is having a bad day, you can be rest assured that they're going to, take it out on the closest person that they think that they're more entitled than, and often it's the baristas, right? So I'm sure that if you work in the industry, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I needed a bit of a break, and so I was headhunted by a company called Bluestone Lane. Now, you probably haven't heard of it, but it's an Aussie-inspired cafe brand from New York that was expanding out to Toronto. So they flew me out here, and I started their 2 shops here, along with an amazing team. So the shop on 37 King East and 2 Queen East. Now, I quickly found out that product or that concept really wasn't genuinely what we were supplying in Australia and the way in which we were doing it in Australia. So it didn't really align with my core values. But after a week of being here, I had to make friends, and I met a wonderful girl named Nicole. And I probably shouldn't talk about her knowing this is going to go on YouTube, but she's wonderful. We're still together, and she completely changed my life, and she's the best. Anyway, we obviously met in 2019, and then at the beginning of 2020, we all know what happened. A pandemic hit, and I had to decide, am I going to stay in Canada or am I going to go back to Australia? I chose to sell everything in Australia and stay in Canada. And so I literally sold my car, my couch, everything I had to be able to get my foot in the door to be able to start Found. Now, we started Found in mid-2020 when I thought we were over. I thought the pandemic was over, right? Like, didn't we all back in, August 2020? We were like, yeah, the wave is finished, we're good, yeah, woo. Yeah, not a good idea. I started by buying an existing business. Now, the first photo here is Martina and Jabola. They were pregnant, they were ready, and they were burnt out. They were serving Sam James coffee, that he was an artist. She just loved coffee, and basically they were ready to move on from the industry. They were ready to just say goodbye. I had met them because I was already involved after being in the industry for 21 years in Australia. I had connections to a lot of really great products that aren't actually available in North America. And so I had met certain cafe owners, Sorry Coffee. I had met a lot of Ethica. I'd met all those guys with this product, and the feedback was fantastic. And so when they told me that they were going to move on from their business, I was like, okay, what do you need to help? Like, how do I set you up for the future for this new bub that you're about to have? And so we agreed on a price. We bought all their equipment, and we took over their lease, because in that stage it was a very high risk environment, and we're just really lucky that people noticed. To put it bluntly, because when we opened, legitimately, it was just me and one other person, and I woke up at 5 o'clock like you did this morning to get up and open the shop, and then I was there open till close, and I had this moment where I was panicking, and I thought, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to sleep in the basement. That's the only way that this is going to work, because the rents were so crazy expensive and all of that. So anyway, we opened in August 2020. Literally, our first sales were $200, not enough for me to be able to buy food and all this stuff. But I had about $10,000 left in our account, and we were doing $200 in sales, and it was just you know what, I'm rebuilding. This is a new venture for us, but I'm just going to let my passion be my permission. I didn't want to just do what everyone else does and try to put all this money into marketing and trying to buy your business. Even though there's a place for that in the industry, I think what it was missing was authenticity. A place and an owner that actually was you know what, I'm going to be on Instagram myself. I don't know if any of you have us on Instagram. I don't know if any of you ever look at it. I don't know. Yep. But often I'm the one there with my ugly face going, "G'day guys," And I remember every morning I would be out there at the front of my shop, and I would just do little pans into the shop, and I'd be open today, 7 till 3 or whatever it was. And then obviously it was been a wild ride since. Especially when the government kept changing their mind what they wanted, with the whole pandemic and all the different waves and how we had to operate. And then on top of that, because we were a new business, there was no support for us, right? So there was no loss of sales from the year before because we didn't exist the year before. So we were in a really rough spot, but we made decisions based on what we had, and it's working out so far. But we were actually nominated as the best new coffee shop in Toronto in 2020, and I make a joke about it because, you know, how many coffee shops actually opened in 2020? I guess we were one of the idiots. And so, yeah, we opened and we won. Like, to be honest, like, I just didn't expect us to win. I was just like, oh yeah, and I bawled my eyes out. Like, I was like panicking and I was nervous, even like I am now. I'm a little bit nervous, but it was a wild and really humbling, because for us, like, when you have a little baby that you birth, it's like, oh, you like my baby? Oh, that's nice. That's cool. Like, it's like, anyway. And so we won best new coffee shop in the city. And it was voted by the community. It wasn't voted by like other people, like our other industry leaders. It was voted by our customers. Like, our customers literally went on and voted for us, which I thought was really, really cool. My number one goal was to have a really, really great product and to take care of people. Now, I had learned in the industry often that people and corporations were always putting profit over people or product. Now, I can tell you for a certain amount that any of you that have worked for Starbucks, Tim Hortons, all of these big guys, they're always focused on how they make more money, right? I've tried to switch it where it's like, no, how do I take care of people better, and how do I take care of my product better? Because if I take care of our people and I take care of our product, the profit takes care of itself. All right? It's often in my mind, the most important recipe for success that we've experienced. But we had a little shop, as you can see. We kept the coffee shop sign, but the awning was crap and it needed a little bit of love, and inside was very basic and minimal, which was great. I basically didn't do that much more. And then we reopened and we were like, all right, we hope people come, and we're still here today. This is just me in the middle of a snow blizzard on Australia Day. So Australia Day, we have a saying in our team. It's like, we're going to make the special times special, right? So on Australia Day, we're going to do something to celebrate Australia. And back in those days, we were doing, you know, certain things that were draw cards for people to come. But yeah, I've already talked about our street appeal, our authentic social media presence. So I think everything's trying to sell you something, right? Like, you turn on Instagram, there's now a new app called Threads or whatever. Everyone's trying to sell you something. They all want your attention. You are the most valuable asset. You, people, right? They'll try and put billboards everywhere. They're trying to keep your attention. They're now trying to get your attention on other stuff and promote themselves to be able to push more sales. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do that. There's no other brand that Starbucks CEO is sort of sitting on there going, hi, can you come buy a caramel macchiato or something? No, like, we were just letting you get to know me. I was starting to share the story, the face, the heart, the vision, the goal. Because as an owner, if you're not likable, your staff aren't going to like you, your customers aren't going to like you, you're going to be forced to make the decisions to push profit over people and product. I just also leaned into the things that making us different. So I was like, you know, I'd always try my best to make sure I say g'day, because everyone thinks Australians say g'day, even though we really don't. We do little things like that. Let's be real. I could talk a lot more like this, and you guys would think there's a croc. You know? So anyway, thanks. You know, bless Steve Irwin. Anyway, leaning into things that make you different, because authenticity, being genuine, actually caring about people, caring about your product, showing them the why behind the what. Because if these days, like, you can go anywhere. Like, how many of you, you know, today we've got a Tim Hortons here, but ultimately, how many of you walked past so many different coffee shops, you know, like, to go to the one that you want to, you like to, the one that gives you that feeling of connection and community, right? That's something that these big brands cannot emulate. They can't. There is no way that Starbucks can be human. It can just be convenient. All right? Anyway, so I share our story, and obviously I'm a little bit passionate about that one. Well, that's me again. Let me just skip through that. All right. Funny story with Bellwoods. Now, our College Street, we won Best New Coffee Shop in the City in 2020. I was interviewed for that across the road from this shop. I had just sold my apartment in Australia, and I was like, all right, I think we're onto something. I really need to start a second shop. And I looked across the road, and there's this little shop called The Lucky Penny. Now, I was like, oh, this shop is adorable, has so much potential, but it wasn't very busy. It was a little bit dull, a bit run down, needed a little bit of love. And so we were like, oh, I'd do anything to get that spot one day. Wasn't available. You know, for about 6 months, I had looked at like 30 other locations across Toronto. Nothing got me excited the way that this shop did. It was in Trinity Bellwoods. It was like a very upmarket, fun area, but it's off the main street, which means maybe it's not going to cost the way that the other leases cost. But it wasn't available, and I had looked at all these other shops, and I basically gone, okay, how do I actually maybe it's just not the right time for us. Maybe we'll just wait a little bit longer and see what else pops up. Then the agent emailed me one more address, and he said, this one's not on the market, but I know someone that knows someone, and if you're interested in it, we think that you'd be able to get this deal done. And I was like, sure, every real estate agent says that, right? Because your brand's the best. No offense, no offense. Your brand's the best. You're the most important, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be more successful. They're going to promise you all this stuff, right? And so we're like, sure, send me the address. I put the address in Google, and no doubt, I literally, I couldn't breathe for like 3 seconds, because it was the shop that I looked at like 4 months earlier across the road, and I was like, this is the one. And so obviously I dropped everything, got really desperate, and was like, let's go. But yeah, we opened in January 2022. We built it in 3 days. To be honest, and it was in the middle of a snowstorm, and it was wild, because when the rent is payable, you got to try and do your best to bring in that money. But we announced it, and we launched, and we just did what we did at our College Street shop, but now we did it at 2 shops. So it was one team, one cafe, one coffee shop at 2 locations. We didn't try to be a franchise. We didn't try to get too far out of our normal wheelhouse. We didn't try to do something too much different. We just made sure that we stayed on the path of what was working. We didn't want to overextend ourselves financially and try our, best at too much stuff. We didn't want to start a bakery. We didn't want to do any of those things that really weren't working. We stayed on the things that were working, and we just did it at another location, and we just hoped that people would come, and they did. We had lines out the door for about 40-50 meters down the road. And it was wild. But what we did free brewed coffee for the first week. Because what do you do when you move to a new neighborhood? You invite your neighbors in for coffee, right? That's just the preface of that. Now, did a lot of them come back? No. I would say probably 85% of them wouldn't have come back, because they wanted something for free, right? Everyone wants something for free. And that's okay, but you can't run a business for free. So ultimately they didn't come back, and they probably went to other places, and that's okay. We have since won Best New Coffee Shop. So that location won Best New Coffee Shop in the City this year, right? Because that was the 2022 award. So we won Best New Coffee Shop this year, and we were voted Best Coffee Shop in the West End. So it was hilarious. There are so many great coffee shops around, especially in that area, that neighborhood. I did not expect for us to win, and so we did. And one of the things that we continued to do was to remain authentic and share our stories. So I would be on Instagram still. I'd be like, hey, let me show you what we're going to do with this spot. Oh, check out this corner. Check out this. Here's what we're going to do. Oh, we're going to put a mirror here. Why are we putting a mirror there? Well, because it expands the space. Some of the decorating things that you've mentioned before. So those sort of things were important, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So if you're in a situation where you're trying to convince people to buy into your coffee shop or your brand, they have to believe in it. They want to know the why. Especially the younger people, they're going to want to know, where are you getting your milk from? Where are you getting your coffee from? Have you paid a reasonable price for it? Because if I'm paying you 50 cents more than Tim Hortons or whatever, then I want to know that that's actually, that aligns with my core values, right? And there won't be people that will. That we still get people that come in every day. They want a double, and we'll make them a double, and they'll think that something completely like it's just completely different coffee, right? So they won't like it as much, or they'll love it and they'll go, oh, this tastes so amazing. So there is still people that are going to come in from that mindset, and we have a saying that says everybody's on a journey from Starbucks to specialty, right? Starbucks is incredibly expensive for what they're giving you. You know, yesterday I'm in my building and there's a Starbucks across the road on the corner, like every corner in Toronto. And this lady walked into the elevator and she had a Starbucks, massive Starbucks cup. And I was like, the whole thing was basically ice that was left. And I was like, you probably paid $7 for that. And I just thought to myself, that's the biggest rip ever, because it's just a cup of ice. So one of the things that we do is like, we have systems that's like, hey, no, we're going to actually give you a good value product, right? We're not just going to, try and sell you something and take money from you. We're going to give you a good value product. And there are people that say we're overpriced. There are people that say that, and that's okay. But I would say that they just don't understand or see the value in what we're doing. And that's what's different. Still with me? Am I talking too quickly? I talk too quickly when I'm nervous. All right? We're okay? All right. Now, we got to January 2022, and we had 2 shops, and we were like, all right, what's next for us? Now, my girlfriend's family, some of them live in Guelph. And so for 3 years, I was driving to Guelph to spend time with her sister and brother-in-law and their kids. And I just wish that the coffee was better. It's just like, oh my God, I can't. Like, I've never drunk Tim Hortons since moving here. And I don't drink Starbucks and all that sort of stuff. And I was just like, where do I drink coffee in Guelph? And we went to their best cafe in Guelph, and no, it wasn't the best cafe in Guelph. It was just not good at all. And we were like, okay, I think we can do something here, because there was so many people leaving Toronto. There was moving to the more regional, where there's better value for money, where there's a bit more space, where there's a little bit more of a, in my mind, a little bit more of a heartbeat to the community, the way that, we all wish it was. It's a little bit, Guelph's a long way away. I'm finding that out the more that I travel there, but it was an opportunity for us. So there was I looked at like maybe 5 or 6 sites in Guelph. Everything was run down, old. Landlords wanted too much money. And then there was a shop that had closed about 4 or 5 months earlier, opposite the farmers market, 3 doors down from Balzac's. Eye roll. Because they're everywhere, right? Corporations are everywhere. They're the ones that have got the money. They're making sole decisions based on what makes sense financially, not what they're passionate about. Difference. Anyway, and so I looked at this shop and I was like, oh man, I would love to do something in that space, but it's 4,000 square feet, right? That's a big shop. Like it was an old milk dairy from like back in the day. It was 4,000 square feet, 4 times bigger than this shop, right? And we were like, we can't afford this. but the rent was like, it's actually our most expensive lease compared to the 2 in Toronto, but it's 4 times the size. And we were like, oh man, this could be a real foot in the door for us. So we did. We started a shop in Guelph 8 months later. Oh, that's me again. 8 months later, so nearly a year ago now, we took a little shop, and it's kind of funny actually, because I don't know if you've ever been to our shop before, but if you have a look at our cups, we have like the streetscape, like the skyline on it. And I had, without a shadow of a doubt, before we even knew we were going to do Guelph, our designer had drawn this building on our cup. Wild. Crazy. Like if you have a look at our original Found cups, like it's got this 3-story building with 3, and it's probably, whatever. And so anyway, we went, we started the shop. Now this is just the front of the shop. The front of the shop's a cafe, okay? The back of the shop is now our roastery. So we, this week, after 11 months of getting tradespeople, ticking boxes, it's been a nightmare of red tape in Guelph, to be completely honest with you. It's not been easy. But we opened in August 2022, or soft opened, and now we'll do a proper opening now that the roasting space is finished. People can come and do cuppings, tastings. There's a lot more that we can do. And now this spot in particular is actually going to be our headquarters for our operation. So now Guelph is going to be our shop or our space that's going to be able to supply our Toronto locations, where we're going to be able.
Just to confirm, you'd like to call Albert
Yeah, we want to call Albert. And so, have you ever, like, it's kind of funny actually, I've always dreamed about saying, hey Siri, and seeing who's. We wanted to make sure that now we were turning one coffee shop into 2 cities, which, to be honest with you, was very difficult because the amount of people, like, we do get people every month, every couple of weeks, they email me wanting to start a Found franchise and wanting to buy into our shop and all this sort of stuff, which I'm not really interested in. I'm not against a joint venture opportunity, but I really don't think that the world needs more franchises. And I think that takes away from the core values of why we started Found. So we're staying small, but we're dreaming big. And the way in which we're trying to do that is we take care of our managers. We make sure we're paying above award wages. We're making sure that we're doing things that are supporting of people. Like I said earlier, people over profit, product over profit. The profit is often not is the fruit of healthy things. If you take care of people and product, and then the profit takes care of itself, because the people that are serving your product care about it, and people can tell. When you walk into a coffee shop, like, one of the things that I hear most about Tim Hortons is that the whole experience is just transactional, right? It's, can I get a medium double, or whatever, right? Like, it's like, bang, coffee, see you later. There's no connection there. Anyway. Guelph still kind of keeps me up at night a little bit because it's an unknown market, but I know and I believe that it's got the potential. So it's now our coffee roastery, which helps us achieve our vision and our goals to make sure that we're actually supporting farmers and we're paying a fair and reasonable price, and I can tell you more about that if you have questions on it. It's also a studio at the back. So 4,000 square feet is a lot of space. We've got a little Loring coffee roaster there. It's the most sustainable coffee roaster on the planet. And then there's also a bigger space even at the back, and that's a yoga studio or a dance studio, and it's open to the community to book, so that they also bring in people to our business and they can experience what we're offering. So it's a cool little space for community that we're hoping becomes a platform of success for us, because as we grow, as small business grows and improves, so does the community that they're in. That's it from me, I think. That's the Found story so far.
Thank you so much. We have time for a couple of questions. Anyone has any question?
Actually, you didn't answer how you came up with Found.
Yeah, so funny story. Found, by definition, and what we're aiming to achieve, is by recreating that feeling that you get when you find something that you've been looking for your whole life. That sense of peace, that sense of rest, that sense of belonging, that sense of home. Have you ever been in a country when you're just like, you're a bit out of your depth, and you just want to, or feeling a little bit lonely, or like ostracized, or whatever. But when you feel that sense of found, you're like, oh, I found something. That's the whole idea behind it. We picked coral and blue as our colour schemes because Australia is known for 2 things: desert and ocean. And we want to create that feeling that you get when you find an ocean in the desert. Starbucks, Tim Hortons, everywhere you can think of. Their Second Cup, everyone has a franchise, right? They're everywhere, and they're run by people. And I respect that Starbucks have employs a lot of people and all of that. But I believe that the tide is shifting away from the franchise mass production model into a more community independent scene, and the evidence of that is in every developed country outside of North America, especially in Australia. We're probably, I would say, 10 to 12 years ahead of where North America is at right now. In terms of coffee, not in all areas. Please don't take that out of context.
Didn't Starbucks shut down in Australia?
Yeah, it did. So just everybody, like Starbucks Australia was the only country that Starbucks failed in.
And why do you think that is?
Because of independence. Because there was already great cafes in every city that were run by people that care. They weren't looking for convenience. That's the one thing that Starbucks and Tim Hortons and Second Cup and Balzac's, all these big guys have over independence, is convenience. So when it's negative 30 outside, or whatever ridiculous temperatures exist in this country, people just want to go for the closest space. And I've been there. I haven't been to Starbucks, but haven't been to Tim Hortons. But like, I've been there where you're desperate for something, but I'm like, man, how good would it be? Like this, to me, is exciting. The fact that there's, 25 people in this room caring about wanting to provide an independent coffee experience, this is what the industry needs. Because there have been brands that have opened up over the last 5 years and crashed. They've, expanded too rapidly, too quickly, they've overextended themselves, they've got outside investment that's calling them solely for and delivering solely profit, and then they've fallen apart. I think the fact that Found is still around is like, I can't believe it. Like I was willing to, lose everything, but Found's name in particular is that for that exact reason. We're wanting to recreate that feeling that you get when you find something that you've been looking for your whole life. And we have our coordinates that every shop that you go into, every shop on the outside have the coordinates to that exact location. So you can put it in Google and it will literally give you directions to the shop. So it's a cool little concept that we wanted to see how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.